Welcome to the On the Path podcast, a conversation on navigating life. Join Chris Coker and Colin Creech as they have honest conversations with fellow travelers on the path. In each episode, they explore the physical, mental, and spiritual health aspects of the whole self, striving for personal accountability and a strong community. Gain insights, learn from our mistakes, and hear from guests who have mastered these areas. Step on the path, embracing every challenge and success along the way. See you on the path.
Welcome to the first ever episode of the On the Path podcast. I am your co-host, Chris.
And I'm your other co-host, Colin. We're definitely going to more formally introduce ourselves in the coming episodes, but we wanted to first start off by, telling the audience a little bit about what On the Path podcast is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like Colin just said, we're going to go a little bit deeper. We thought it'd be great if you guys could get to know us a little bit. So this is, we're going to have a lot of guests over the course of the next months and years, but we thought the best guest to kick off the show would really be the two of us. You can get to know us. But today is all about getting to know On the Path, who we are, what we stand for, and why we wanted to put this show together for all of you. So with that, I think, Colin, maybe a great way to dive into this is, you and I kind of converged, over the course of time with some of the things that you were dealing with, some of the things that I was dealing with, and we put our heads together and said, maybe there's a way to expand this conversation for others. So why don't you tell us a little bit about where you were before the show, came into formation, and then I'll do the same, and we can talk about how that brought us together.
Yeah, and I know we're going to dive deeper, but it really kind of came to fruition where we both figured out we were going through, challenges in life. And I think that was, they were unique challenges for both of us. They weren't the same thing, but it kind of helped us, as we were spending a lot of time together, virtually and together. We realized there were some key things that really helped us, as we called it, stay on the path. And so instead of being selfish, we thought maybe we can share that with others. And that's kind of what brought us here today. So the show isn't really about us. It's about us continuing to grow and expand our knowledge. But, we wanted to share that with others as we're along this journey together.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess just to build on that, like you said, Colin, I was going through some of my, my own stuff when you and we've been friends for a long time, but we weren't really going deep on some of these things until we decided to start doing the show. And I think really for me, one of the things that stood out in the early days was the damage that can be done by unchecked mistakes, right? And it suddenly, having so many conversations with you and with some of these guests that we've been talking to, it gives me an opportunity to bounce my thoughts and my feelings off of other soundboards, confidants like you, experts like some of the guests that we have. And for me, I'm seeing huge value in my own life, and I'm very confident that the both of us are going to bring, just as much value to everybody that's going to listen and watch this show, right? Because at the end of the day, we all have our own paths, which we'll get to here in a second, but we can walk on that path together too.
Yeah, and I think what we both have just seen too, like this world is so fast paced. There's so many complexities. There's so many personal struggles that we just don't share because that's not the culture or the norm. And so, whether or not, you're in that place or maybe your life's outstanding, awesome. There's always ways to improve. There's always ways to refine yourself. And so for everyone listening, the path, is unique for everybody. Chris and I are not going to tell you what the path is, whether it's you living intentionally or you're living for a higher purpose, that's unique to you. But what we really figured out over time is everybody's on their own unique path, but there's probably, 5 things that we can do together that will, keep us on that path. And maybe, Chris, you can tell everybody a little bit about what those 5 tenets, the whole self philosophy that you and I have created that we're going to refine on this show is all about.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Colin. Look, the path is a conversation on navigating life, right? Like Colin just kind of broke down why we're here, right? Everybody has struggles. Everybody has difficulties that they deal with in their life. Why struggle alone? We can do it together, right? So the idea behind the show is it's a conversation on navigating life. And the way that we frame this is we've developed what we call the whole self philosophy, which is really comprised of 5 different tenets. You have physical, mental, and spiritual strength, right? And these each have their respective definitions. Obviously, to some people, physical might mean going on a walk. To others, it might be something much more intense than that. Mental. There's a lot. That's a huge bucket, right? There's mental health. There's emotional health. There's psychological well-being. There's all of these different threads that we can pull from, and then of course, spiritual. Right. We're not here to preach at you. We're not here to tell you, whether you should believe in a higher power or not, but to help you explore some of the thoughts that maybe you're not getting in other, areas of social media today. Right. So at the end of the day, we do believe that you should be physically, mentally, and spiritually strong, however that looks to you. And then the other two tenets are personal accountability and healthy community, right? You need both of these two things. So think of it like when you're on the path, that physical, mental, and spiritual is kind of the armor that protects you along the way. And personal accountability and healthy community are kind of the guide rails that you can use to keep you on the path. It starts with yourself. Are you holding yourself accountable to the things that you say you're going to do? Or maybe the things that you haven't said you're going to do, but you know that you should do them, right? You have to hold yourself personally accountable. Now, we acknowledge that can be difficult, and that's where the community component comes into play. Are you taking the necessary steps to surround yourself with the people that are going to help you live your life the way that you know you should, and the way that you want to? And so, the good news is, On the Path podcast is here to be a part of that community for you. We're going to come together and Colin and I are going to have all sorts of conversations along the way to unpack some of the discussions we have with guests. We're going to bring all sorts of different experts on that are in these different tenets, right? Sometimes we might talk to an athlete that is an expert in the physical component. Other times we might talk to some sort of community service director that really, really is in touch with how to bring community together and how to get involved. So I think between all of these different components, even though you may not agree with everybody that's ever on the show, you're going to be equipped with so much knowledge to help you live your life the way that you want to, so that you feel like you're walking on that path towards personal fulfillment.
Yeah. And I think you said it so well, physical, mental, spiritual, personal accountability, and a strong community. And this isn't the selfish whole self philosophy, but we also see that if you want to show up for those that are important to you, you've got to take care of yourself first. You got to work on those 5 areas, and sometimes even when you think work on those 5 areas, strong community, sometimes there might be people in your life that are, not a positive influence. So it is really starts with you, and it's taking care of yourself. And then from there, you can take care of others and be there for others, show up to others. And, as Chris and I know, it's never perfect. We've been, working on several different initiatives, I would say, in our personal lives around those 5 areas. And we've seen each other do really well. We've seen each other, kind of maybe take a little side detour off the path, a little side trail. But, I think we view those 5 things: physical, mental, spiritual, personal accountability, strong community. I'm not perfect. As the 5 things that we work on ourselves to then, enable us to stay on the path, and then, to show up for those that are important to us.
That's right.
I think, kind of as you were saying, Chris, and sorry to interrupt, but, these are weekly conversations. We're going to be talking with guests who are going to be giving us practical advice. There might be experts. They might be people that have done impressive things in one of these areas, but also, I think we're going to be debriefing it and sharing with the guests on, how are we going to pull some of these things we're learning into our own lives? How are we going to grow our own capabilities in these 5 areas?
Yeah, exactly. Like Colin said, it's going to be once a week. You're going to hear from us once a week. We're going to be on, all of the platforms. If you want to listen while you're in the car, you want to watch while you're at home, you can do both of those things every week across a wide range of guests. And as Colin alluded to, we also wanted to make sure that we really pull through the stories that you're going to hear. Some of these are really, really inspirational stories of people that have found all sorts of success in their life in the way that they define it. They're resilient, they're intentional, they're deliberate, and we want to make sure we do our part to really unpack those conversations. So not only are you going to hear from the guests, but you're going to hear from Colin and I on the conversation we had with that guest, right? We're going to call them guest debriefs, where we're really trying to unpack these things to help you explore the concepts that we're talking about. So the good news is maybe you don't exactly know where your path is yet. We might say you're a pathfinder. I don't know, for any of my fellow Army fans, please don't hate that too much, but hey, it's so fitting, right? You may not know exactly where you are on the path just yet, and that's what we are here for. We want to help you explore that, help you find it, and then ensure that you feel like there are people to your left and right that can help you stay in the guided direction that you want to be moving to. So with that, Colin, let me pass it over to you.
Yeah.
Why don't you give everybody listening to our first ever episode, which I'm stoked that we are recording this right now and doing our first ever.
Yep.
How do they get involved? How do they stay in touch? Where do they need to go if they want to watch or they want to listen? Let me just kick it over to you.
I would say the majority of our channels are OT Path Podcast, Instagram, Twitter. And, if you're wanting to just listen, you can follow us on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever podcasts are found. But also if you want to watch, YouTube is also available, OT Path Podcast. But also we've kind of realized that, sometimes it's really hard to just understand on a weekly basis, where Chris and Colin are going all the time and how we're incorporating these things into our life. And that's where we created a Patreon where you can also, support us along this journey on our path, but also get a lot more behind the scenes. And that is called Private Trails. And it's definitely, a little bit more personal, a little bit more probably comical, I might say, Chris, but also there's some really special things that you're able to share with us, and we really appreciate it. And maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what is exclusively on Private Trails, our Patreon page.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head, Colin. I think Private Trails is brilliant, by the way. Patreon.com/Private Trails. We're both very proud of that branding. So as you can tell by the smirks on our face, but I think it's going to be a really good way to get, kind of these raw, authentic conversations, right? You're going to have, of course, authentic content through the podcast and through the YouTube channel, but obviously these are going to be polished because we want to make sure that we are highlighting exactly the right lessons that the guest is bringing on, right? So there's going to be very good, high produced content. And then patreon.com, we're going to go into a lot of areas that we aren't going to cover on the show. We're going to do what's called, map checks, where we're just checking in with Colin and I on how is it going, running the podcast and running the show and all these other, side endeavors that we're pursuing. How is that going? Are we on the path, right? We're going to have walks on the path where it might be, I'm dealing with something or Colin and it is, and we want to really kind of be role models, right? Especially, as a man, it's not always easy for me to talk about the things that I'm struggling with, the things that I'm dealing with. And, it'll be an opportunity for you to get a look into some of those things and hopefully encourage you to find people that you can have map checks with or that you can take walks on the path with as well. And additionally, for those that don't know, some of you, the few and the proud may know that I used to produce a podcast called Suit Soldier, which was all about as Colin and I are both veterans, which I'm sure we'll uncover in our interviews respectively. We know such a large number of veterans within the community, and more importantly, so many veterans that have succeeded. And Suit Soldier was all about translating that military excellence into success after service. And one of the ways that these two shows are the same is success was never about titles and money. Success was always about whatever it means to that person. Are they living their life on the path? So now you can't find that content anywhere. It is exclusively on Patreon. So if you want to hear some of those episodes, we talk to people like Patrick Bet-David, Rudy Reyes was on there, the Honorable Bob McDonald. He used to be the CEO of Procter & Gamble. And then after that, he was the head of Veteran Affairs for the U.S. We had, actors and athletes and politicians, tons and tons of content with incredible guests that you are going to have exclusive access to that can't be found anywhere else. And the other part of the Patreon account that I'm going to highlight here is it's going to give you an opportunity to share your favorite content with us. What do you like? What do you not like? How do you get involved? How do you, suggest guests that you might want to hear from? It's going to be a great way for you to engage directly with Colin and I. So yeah, if you're interested, as Colin said, on all of the socials, listen to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And then, of course, we'll have our YouTube channel as well if you want to sit down and really use these episodes to study. So with that, Colin, I'll let you start rounding us out to close out the first episode.
Yeah, and I have to say, if you're listening right now and you're like, these guys are super serious, I don't know if I can take a serious podcast, all the time. We make mistakes. You can laugh at us, or, we also have built a little humor into our show because we know that some of these topics we discuss are a little serious. And if you know Chris and I personally, you might know that's not us all the time. And we promise you our personalities do come out more and more. We were just hoping to really, take a little bit of time before we started this by explaining what the path is, and just really at the end of the day, for us, it's about refining the whole self, mental, physical, spiritual, personal accountability, a strong community. And that way we can be healthier for those that, we care about, that we want to, be there for. And at the end of the day, I think no one disagrees with the fact that there's a lot going on in this world. And so the Path Podcast is an opportunity for you to hear from those experts on a weekly basis. And maybe you agree with them, maybe you don't, but just things that you can take into your whole life to have more positivity, to be more grateful. And we're grateful that you're even listening. I can say that first and foremost, but that's really, what the On the Path Podcast is all about. Again, you can find us at OT Path Podcast on all the socials, but, also our private trails on Patreon, patreon.com/private trails. But before we end it, Chris, I want to hear a little bit from you. What can the listeners expect from you? What do you think about the listeners? Let's dive a little deeper there before we call it a day.
Absolutely. Like Colin said, we're going to unpack a lot of deep conversations. Sometimes we might hit on things that are happening around the world, but this isn't meant to be doom and gloom. This is really a show about hope and encouragement and really helping everybody that watches and everybody listens, helping you to understand that you are capable of navigating your path the way that you want your path to be navigated. Maybe you feel like, you just need a little help along the way, and we want to be that help for you, whether directly or indirectly. We think we can do that for you. So that's really what we're all about. We're so excited. This is going to be, a fun journey for all of us. As Colin's mentioned a few times now, we're on the path too. We're not perfect. Not everything is always going to, come off exactly as polished as maybe we even want it, but it's going to be great. And we're so excited to be on the path with you. So with that, thank you very much to everybody that tuned in to our first ever episode. Make sure that along the way, you're sharing these episodes with friends, your family, your colleagues, people that you think might need to hear this, or people that you just want to share it with. Please do that. Your support means the world to us today, and it's going to mean the world to us, over the course of time. So thank you very much. We cannot wait to see you on the path.
See you on the path.